And there she's got more than 6 people. Whew, lots. All right. Okay, go ahead.
Have you ever been driving down the road and you take your eyes off the road just for 1 second? Maybe because your cell phone rang or your kids in the back are fighting? Well, if you have, then I'm sure you felt your car shift a little, and then you get that worry feel in your stomach. And you hurry and put your eyes back on the road and correct yourself, but sometimes it's just too late. In this presentation, I'm going to be talking to you about all the different distractions of driving and how to prevent them. Well, what are distractions? People think they know what they are, but sometimes they really don't. Distractions are anything that you're doing that doesn't involve driving in this case. There are 3 different types of distractions: visual, taking your eyes off the road; manual, taking your hands off the wheel; and cognitive, taking your mind off of what you're doing. Now, visual is pretty self-explanatory, taking your eyes off the road for any reason. But manual, some people say, oh, I can drive with just one hand, or if you're my father, you think you can drive with your knee. Well, believe me, you don't feel very safe, and neither do your passengers. And cognitive, last and certainly not least, taking your mind off what you're doing. Have you ever been in a bad mood or you're really stressed out about something? Well, do everyone on the road a favor and either don't drive or pull over and take a few seconds to think things through, and when you feel ready, get back on the road. This will definitely reduce your risk of crashing. There are so many different types of distractions. Using a cell phone is obviously the most common. My own mother can't even dial a number while she's trying to drive. She hands it to her passenger. So imagine people trying to text and drive. I'm sure you've heard a lot about this whole new campaign called Don't Text and Drive. It's really important because when you text and drive, you're taking your eyes off to check your text messages, you're taking your hands off the wheel to reply to your message, and you're taking your mind off of the road to try to get into the conversation you're having. Same with just talking on the phone. You're obviously taking your mind off of what you're doing to get into a conversation. Eating and drinking. This may not seem like a common distraction, but it really can be. If you're running late and you just have to get that coffee, try drinking coffee while driving. It's really hard, especially if you don't want to spill. Or if you're trying to make a fast run to McDonald's, try leaving early and either go sit in the place or park in the parking lot and eat quickly. But no matter what you do, do not try eating and drinking and driving. Talking to passengers. Passengers are a big distraction to anyone. If you're sitting in a car and you're trying to engage in a conversation with your passenger, your mind's not on the road, and sometimes neither are your eyes because you're trying to make eye contact. Or if your kids are in the back seat crying and fighting, some moms decide that to take their hands and eyes off the road and turn around and try to discipline their kids. If you're one of these moms, try pulling over. And if not, then maybe explain to your kids that while mommy and daddy are driving, they need to be quiet. Tell them to bring a book or maybe even a Game Boy to keep them distracted. Grooming. Now this may not seem like an important one either, but it really is. Maybe you're running late and you're trying to do your makeup in the car. Well, you're taking your eyes off the road to put on your makeup, you're taking your hands off the road to apply it, and you're taking your mind off of the road to think about what you're doing. And the other day, I was driving behind this lady who decides to take out her hairbrush and start brushing her hair, and she starts swerving all over the road, and that could not be safe. Another one is reading. When I researched this and I found reading, I thought, who takes a book with them while they're driving? But I didn't realize that reading can mean maps and directions. If you're trying to find some place or a certain house you need to go to, try giving the directions to your passenger and have them direct you, and you just keep your eyes on the road. Another one is navigational systems like GPSs. Don't get me wrong, they could be very helpful, especially when you're trying to find somewhere to go, but make sure that you use it safely and don't become obsessed with looking at it and trying to figure out where you're going. It should do the work for you. The last thing is changing the radio or CD. Now that is obviously a very big distraction because you're taking your eyes off the road to look at the buttons, you're taking your hands off the wheel to touch the buttons, and you're obviously taking your mind off of it because you're thinking about the music you want to listen to. To prevent this, try presetting your radio stations or have your passenger do it for you. There are obviously more vulnerable drivers in these days and ages. Can you guess what age group that is? That's right, 20 and under years of age. Of course, because teenagers, we're not experienced, and we get distracted very easily. Even when you're not driving, there are so many distractions, whether it's in school and even driving. I can feel it sometimes. I wanted to hurry and tell you about a quick little personal story I had about getting distracted and driving. I was on the road and I had picked up my friend and he was sitting in the passenger seat. He decided he wanted to change my radio station. Well, I didn't exactly like that, so I reached over to change it back. Pretty soon we were fighting while I was driving. We were hitting each other and trying to get it back to the station we wanted. All of a sudden, I felt my truck swerve and I hurried and got back into what I was doing and corrected myself. Well, sometimes it's just too late. If I would have waited 2 seconds more, we would have either rolled or landed in a ditch. They did a survey on distraction.gov of who would be for and against texting and driving. And did you know that 16% of teenagers voted on yes, let's ban texting and driving? Well, what about the other percent? Are they okay with texting and driving? Do they not realize that there are so many accidents that involve texting and driving? Here are some statistics for you. In the year of 2008, over 6,000 people died just from distracted driving. And if you don't think that's a lot, how about 500,000? That's the number of people that were injured because of distracted driving. Distracted driving is a serious issue. There are so many people who die and get injured just because they decided not to rid themselves of all distractions. There are laws that make non-driving issues, and there are some states that just apply those to certain age groups. Like I said, the teenagers, because they're inexperienced and they get distracted easily. I took some statistics off of CBSnews.com and I put them into a pie chart of the deaths of Springfield, Oregon in 2009. Over 44% died because of their cell phone use. 23 died because of their passenger distraction. The radio was a big 9%, and 10% was eating. Like I said, you wouldn't think eating would be such a problem, but it really is. Grooming was the 6%. Reading your maps and directions was the 3%. Your computer. I never thought you could use a computer and get distracted from that in a car, and that was a 1%. So obviously, some people do use their laptops while they're driving, which is really unsafe. The one that shocked me was the 4%, smoking. I thought, how can smoking be a distraction? Well, I guess people that really need their smoke decide to do it in the car. I mean, it could be really hard to find your cigarette, find your lighter, and make sure you don't burn anything in the process, and all while you're still trying to drive. So if you're a smoker, smoke one before you leave or when you get to your destination. Please don't do it during. I just wanted to throw out just a few little facts for you guys. 19 states ban the bus drivers from taking their cell phone. Their cell phones have to be on silent and out of reach. And there are so many other states that do the same things. Like Idaho, they ban texting and driving. They leave it up to the different counties and cities that do that. Like Twin Falls, you're not allowed to text and drive. But around surrounding areas, you are allowed to. Do you know that when you text and drive, that Car and Driver magazine did a research project, and texting and driving is just as bad as drinking and driving? People make such a big deal about drinking and driving, but they don't think about texting and driving. It's just as dangerous. Now, I know all of this may sound just a little scary to you guys, but don't worry. There are so many ways you can prevent this. Like your cell phone. Try treating it like a bus driver and put it on silent or vibrate and out of your reach so you're not tempted to look at it, call, or text message. And like I said, talk to your kids about being good in the car. That way they don't cause you a distraction. And try limiting your passengers to only a few. There are so many things you can do, and there's so much that I've taught you today. Let's review real fast. There are 3 different types of distractions: visual, taking your eyes off the road; manual, taking your hands off the wheel; and cognitive, taking your mind off of driving. And the statistics are crazy. 500,000 injured and 6,000 died in 2008 just because of this. And I've taught you so many ways to prevent this. So please, I encourage you to drive safe and prevent all of your distractions.